Thanks so much. I'm very excited to discuss my research on climate and inequality. I want to talk about three research projects that I work on. The first of which is going to be on financial solutions that can mitigate climate risk. And this is actually something that Carolyn touched on earlier. So low-income countries, especially island nations, face disproportionate climate risk. And their governments are often underfunded in protecting their citizens against this type of risk. We are testing a novel type of insurance together with the government of Dominica in the Caribbean. We want to understand whether parametric insurance can mitigate climate risk. We want to understand whether blockchain technology and mobile money can enable rapid emergency fund disbursement in the aftermath of a hurricane. And we want to know whether in the long run, this can enable faster economic recovery. This project is just starting, and we've generously been funded by a number of different Wharton initiatives. The second project that I want to share about is the fact that deteriorating energy infrastructure can slow economic growth. This is a large research project together with a couple of other partners, including a group of engineers who developed a new and low-cost way of monitoring grid quality. And so on the right here, you can see one of these devices deployed with a small shop somewhere in Accra in Ghana. And so when you deploy hundreds of these types of devices all around the city, you can actually see with really high spatial and temporal granularity exactly where and when power outages are happening. And so we can understand whether, for example, infrastructure investments can improve grid reliability and stabilize voltage and improve voltage quality, and then also whether any investments in grid quality could ultimately stimulate economic growth. The third and final project that I want to talk about is whether energy efficiency adoption can generate large improvements for low-income households. This project was in Nairobi in Kenya. We were working with a large group of very low-income households living in slum areas in Nairobi. All of these households were using a very traditional type of cook stove. They would spend between 10 and 20% of their income buying charcoal on a daily basis that they would then use to cook all of their food. And we offered them an opportunity to adopt this more modern version that still used charcoal, but it was just much better engineered. And so it required much less charcoal to cook your meals on a daily basis. And so those individuals who adopted this modern stove actually reduced their charcoal expenditure significantly. So here you can see that those who adopted the stove immediately after adopting it saved significant amounts of money. Those savings added up to $120 per year. For very low-income families, this was about a month of income, so these were very large financial savings. The stove price is about $40, and so this generates an internal rate of return of about 300%. And in addition to these financial savings, it also reduced carbon emissions by about 3.5 tons of CO2 per stove per year, which if you use the EPA's $42 social cost of carbon is about $150, in addition to significant health improvements for women and children. So given these large benefits, you might wonder, why were households not already adopting these stoves? Well, there was already large adoption among higher income households, and we wanted to understand why adoption was low among middle and lower income households. And so that was our next research question. The first thing we tested was whether perhaps a behavioral nudge where we point people towards information about how much money they would save, whether this would increase demand for the product. Here we show the demand curve that we found, and we see that there's basically no difference in demand between people who got the information nudge and people who didn't. On the other hand, when we provided financing, so when people were able to pay for the stove in installments, the demand curve went up significantly. So this more than doubled a willingness to pay. So this research suggests that providing access to financing can enable lower income households to adopt energy efficient technologies that can generate significant financial, environmental, and health benefits. Thank you so much for your time. I'll end there, and I would love to hear from folks who are interested in this research.